Which kind of brings us to another topic, because in terms of like, oh, where would this go? One of the things that a lot of people say, and some people say this within the context of what we were just laying out, which was that there's not a ton of options out there for the Kings. Therefore, but then there's also some people out there that are just like, no, the Kings should just not mess with the chemistry, which is the point people come to a lot, which is viable. We saw that report earlier in the season. Like, the Kings are not interested in trading Harrison Barnes, and they want to focus on keeping the chemistry. If the validity of that is to be taken for what it is, that would kind of go for the team at large. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like there's an argument, I guess, to be made, probably more in the context of the idea that there's not a ton of options in terms of trade candidates, or at least not visible to us on the outside. There's viability in the argument that the Kings should focus on chemistry more than being aggressive, which is probably more the characterization than just going out and making a trade. It's whether or not the Kings want to be aggressive. Because if the options are low, that means the necessary level of aggression needs to be higher, right? So, I mean, there's a huge argument to be made that, well, if you have to be aggressive to make a move, that might screw with one of the things that you really have going here. I don't know. Could the Kings be put in a position where they just can't be making a move or shouldn't be making a move? I don't know. How do you see some of that?
I mean, I think chemistry is an important piece of winning, right? And the Kings have good chemistry. So, yeah, you don't want to make a move that would hurt the chemistry, kind of like we were talking about with Cam Reddish, where it's like, yeah, Cam Reddish might be able to help out as that backup three, but it's like he's a guy who can ruin that chemistry. Like, maybe those locker room cancers, maybe just a guy that doesn't know his role. I think a guy who knows his role, like that Jalen McDaniels, I think that's why we're talking about like Jalen McDaniels so much. It's like, he's a guy I wouldn't mind bringing over, and he would improve this team and not mess up the chemistry. But you don't want to get a guy. Well, I mean, if you're not improving the chemistry, or at least keeping it the same, then are you really improving the team, right? So, I mean,
True.
Maybe Cam Reddish, I don't know. It's just kind of weird because it's like I just don't see him fitting well in to the team, which would just ruin the chemistry and the team at the same time. So they obviously go hand in hand, but you definitely have to keep that in mind because the Kings they have a good culture going right now under Mike Brown, and you can't mess that up. We've seen stuff happen in the past. I mean, look at the Hawks right now. Like getting DeJounte Murray. I think everyone thought it was just going to be like, oh, or even like the Timberwolves, not to skip my point so quick. And I know these teams are kind of like doing a little better than they were at the start of the season, but just getting a big name doesn't mean you're going to start winning right away, right? Or win at all. Sometimes, or not sometimes. I mean, chemistry is a big factor. And like I said, like the Kings are in much more need of role players and people who know their role to a team than probably like a big splash or like a guy who will ruin up what they got going in Sac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge factor. I guess it's just like one of those things where, again, it's like it's just the prevailing factor, because if you can't make a move, you can't make a move. I mean, the thing is, though, it's like if they can somehow just add a guy and not make anything major, not like trade a guy that's already in the rotation as a stable piece in the rotation, but just get a guy that you can maybe squeeze in there. I mean, that could be useful, but it's like all about how feasible and realistic it is. And at this point, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it is. I don't know how active the Kings are going to be at the trade deadline. And I think the thing that people will come to is just, and I guess it'd be kind of almost a PR narrative. It's just like, we're just you know what we traded for? We traded for more chemistry. I don't know. It just, that just seems like the way it's going, at least right now. 2 weeks, two and a little more than 2 weeks out from the deadline, February 9th.
I think at the end of this, Kings are very they need to get some players, but they're just very limited. and what they can do at this trade deadline. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if no moves were made. And at the end of the day, you need to bring in chemistry guys or role players. That's what they can afford right now, and that's what they need to win. You can worry about maybe getting a big name in the offseason where you have a whole training camp and preseason to build that chemistry together. But right now, you're not looking for any big splashes. You're looking for role players, chemistry guys.
But I mean, it's just, again, it's like, it'd be, I guess, I can talk about it as Mason Plumlee. It's just like, that they're trying to move him. He'd be the one guy that you're pretty much okay with getting maybe for just a half a season rental. It seems like if anybody's going to come here, it's going to be him.
Yeah, but he makes the most sense. And just how closely he resembles Sabonis's game as a backup center, it just makes the most sense. He's going to come in. He's going to be a pro. He's going to know his role. And so that's why it just makes sense. Even if it's just a half-season rental, it's also the position the Kings need the most. They need the most support in is that backup 5 role. So it does make. I mean, maybe just because it just makes the most sense, we can see it like, okay, like we're okay with this. And at the same time, I think you can get him for like maybe a couple second rounders and a Terrence Davis and an Alex Len, right? Like, it's like guys you wouldn't mind giving up because Terrence Davis is in a contract year, and I don't know. I've never really cared too much about second rounders, so Plumlee would be a big pickup. It would definitely bolster this team's depth a little more, because that backup 5 has just been a really big hole. So it would be interesting to see how much better the Kings could get with a pretty solid backup 5.
True.